everyone, thanks for joining me tonight for the CNS-CP Recertification webinar. I am so excited to be able to share with you what I think are some really great changes to the recertification of this credential. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. You can submit questions anytime via the chat feature found in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. You can either use that or the questions feature. I'll be checking both of those periodically throughout the webinar and certainly at the end. If you need additional information or support, you may email us at info@cc-institute.org or call our toll-free number at 888-257-2667. Our office here in Denver, Colorado is open between 8 and 4 Mountain Time. I'm not selling you anything tonight, but I am required to provide this disclaimer before any presentation that we give here at CCI. You are not required to buy anything to be successful on one of our certification exams. We do have several study resources. Again, not a requirement to be successful. The more things you buy doesn't mean the more likely you will be to be successful. And certainly no study resources are prereqs for any of our certification examinations. My name is Julie Maurer. I'm the Nurse Manager for Education Development here at CCI. Our objectives for tonight are to define eligibility requirements for recertification, and then we're going to look at options for maintaining your CNS-CP certification. Definition of recertification. This is a documented validation of continued professional achievement of identified standards of care by the clinical nurse specialist in the perioperative setting. So this is part of continued competence and lifelong learning. The recertification methods have been updated to reflect the importance of continued competency and lifelong learning. So what you're seeing tonight are changes that we made that we feel best demonstrate someone's commitment to continued competence in the advanced practice clinical nurse specialist role. Benefits of recertification: continued recognition, supports the development of theoretical constructs. As advanced practitioners, we understand the importance of theory development in nursing. So this credential helps us to support that. Enhances the professional growth at the advanced practice level through lifelong learning. And we've worked really hard to make sure that lifelong learning is part of the journey, but it's also part of the role of a clinical nurse specialist. We tend to be independent, autonomous practitioners. This recertification method allows you to maintain that independence while you are basically planning your own recertification. It positions perioperative CNSs with other specialty areas that have CNS certification. It supports the vision of the consensus model and the Institute of Medicine's recommendation for continued competence, lifelong learning, continued education. And you may have other benefits that you have found being a certified CNS that is not in this list. Let's look at eligibility criteria. First of all, you need to hold the credential. You need to be a current CNS-CP. You also need to have a current unrestricted RN and or APRN license. Not every state recognizes the clinical nurse specialist as an advanced practice nurse or has a separate license for them. So at the very minimum, you have to have an RN license. If your state does recognize you as an advanced practice nurse with separate licensure, you need to supply that license as well. You need to be currently employed as a CNS in the perioperative setting, and we have these major roles. If you're practicing, you should be able to identify working in at least one of them as a clinical expert, either providing or overseeing patient care. serving as a consultant, an educator, or a researcher. You also need to have accrued 1,000 hours as a practicing CNS in your 5-year accrual window. And this is not difficult to do if your role requires you to be doing other things besides working as a CNS. You should still be able to meet the practice hour requirement without any trouble at all. Here's the accrual periods for the contact hours and activities that we'll be talking about here in a minute. If you are due to recertify in 2021, you needed to have completed the requirements for recertification by December 31st of 2020. And I don't believe there's anybody in this particular recertification cycle. But again, you need to look at your accrual window closes the year before you actually send in your application. So please make sure that you're aware of that as you're working on your contact hours and professional activities. The fee is $350 to recertify. If you also hold the CNOR credential, you get a discount of $50. So let's look at this new recertification method. This was designed by a panel of expert CNS-CPs. They currently hold the credential. I need to give them a shout out. Chris Peredny, Katrina Hawkins, and Sandra Myers have been working on this since at least January, have dedicated their expertise towards ensuring the continued survival of this credential. So it's based on our CNS-CP job analysis, which we conducted before we had the exam several years ago, the NACNS core competencies. And if you're not familiar with these are on the NACNS website. I believe they came out in October of last year, so they're brand new. It takes several years for the NACNS group to revise those core competencies. It's a huge job. I believe the last one came out in 2010. So this is the newest version. So those are also included, and along with the expert opinion, certainly of our advisory council as well as CCI staff. There are 4 steps. It is best to look at this recertification as a proactive rather than a retroactive process. This is not something that you can do a couple days before your certification lapses. So please, if you are looking at recertifying, now's a really good time to become familiar with these 4 steps. The first step is a self-assessment. The next is a learning plan that incorporates the findings from the self-assessment. Activities and contact hours are then accrued to meet the goals identified in the learning plan. And there's also a reflective activity. I'm going to go through each of these 4 steps in quite a bit of detail tonight. This information will also be on our website. So, first step, self-assessment. As advanced practice practitioners, we take the responsibility of identifying what we do well and areas that we need to improve. The tool serves as an evaluation of current levels of competency, a guide to identify areas for growth and improvement, and an opportunity for ongoing learning. So how does that work? Based on the 6 subject areas that were identified in the initial CNS-CP job analysis, our CNS-CP Advisory Council identified core competency statements. This is the rubric that we use for the self-assessment. And please understand, this is not a test. You don't have to get a certain score in order to recertify. It is truly a self-assessment of where you're at right now. The rubric, a 1, you perform this skill less than 25% of the time. A 2 score is 25 to 50% of the time. A 3 score is 50 to 75% of the time. And a 4 score means that you are routinely performing this skill at least 75% of the time. So this is how we measure continued competence, is the amount of time you spend with this skill. So this is just an example, and this is many pages long. This was probably the hardest part of the recertification revision, was the self-assessment. This is an example of what is in the clinical expert subject area, which is our first subject area. These are just a sampling of the competency statements. And there's our rubric 1, 2, 3, 4. So you would just score yourself, being honest, how often you perform these different competencies. So that's all the self-assessment is. Again, not a test, doesn't mean that you're not a good CNS if you score 1s in some of these areas. None of us can do all of these things at a 4 level. So just be honest with yourself, because you are going to take the results of your self-assessment and you're going to choose 2 competencies from that list. They need to be from separate subject areas, and these competencies then become part of your learning plan. Okay, so you complete your self-assessment, you choose 2 of those core competency statements that you would like to improve on. And the form actually has what initiated this desire to gain more knowledge and skills in this area. Was it part of your performance evaluation? Was it peer review comments? Was it an evaluation from a course that you taught? So that the self-assessment walks you through why, you know, you're scoring, but then why did you choose, why did you feel this was important to be working on? So those 2 competencies become part of your learning plan, and you're going to formulate goals. What would you like to improve based on this? And there needs to be a timeline for completion. Please remember that any activities or contact hours need to be earned during your 5-year recert window, during that accrual window. So make sure that you're following those guidelines. There, you may write your goals in as SMART goals if you would like. There's, it's pretty straightforward. You're filling in the blanks with your learning plan. But this is really the crux of your recertification. You're taking responsibility for identifying what you'd like to do better and how you're going to do it. This next section is going to look pretty familiar, because if you recertified using points and activities with your last CNS-CP recertification, we kept most of those, that concept and activities while adding a couple of things. So let's look at what this means. You're going to choose a combination of activities and contact hours that address your goals in your learning plan. You have to have a minimum of 300 points to recertify. Again, everybody's going to have a different plan, and some of you may be able to address your learning needs with, you know, 100 points. Some of you may need 400. So just know that you have to have a minimum of 300 points to recertify. Please, please, please save your documentation in case you are audited. If you have used the points method for either CNS-CP or CNOR, you know that if you are audited, which helps us to maintain the integrity of our credentials, you'll be asked to basically prove that you did what you said you did. Contact hours, again, this has not changed, requiring 10 farm contact hours. You may use the same contact hours that you need for either your state licensure or your primary APRN recertification. So you don't need 10 extra ones. Most of us, if you've got prescriptive authority and or primary certification as a CNS, you know you have to have some farm contact hours. So that's That's nothing new. Each contact hour is worth 2 points, just like with the CNOR points. But contact hours alone cannot be used to meet the learning plan goals. So you have to do some activities as well. This aligns with the position that CCI took several years ago, where we no longer accepted contact hours alone as a method for recertification. If you're going back to school, a semester hour is equal to 15 contact hours, and a quarter hour is equal to 10 contact hours. If you are taking some CME credits, they need to be category 1. 1 CME equals 1 contact. So that's the contact hours. The activities, you're going to choose activities to meet the goals of your learning plan. And we have at least 9 activities right now. We tend to add them as the need arises, but I have never heard anyone say I was not able to recertify because I couldn't find enough activities. Your self-assessment is worth points. Your peer reviews are worth points. So you get points just by filling out those forms. And we're going to be talking about peer reviews here in more detail in just a minute. Academic study, I picked the activities that, although they may be similar to CNOR, there's a little bit of a twist. As an advanced practitioner, we need to up our game a little bit. So we need to get at least a B in a course. We do cap the number of points for the academic activity. As advanced practitioners, frequently we are already at our terminal degree, so there's not the big push to continue getting another degree. And we want to give the CNS-CP opportunities to complete a variety of activities and not only academic courses. And again, if you're audited, then you would need to provide the course description and an original transcript. Service on a board or committee, we're looking at committees that are related to advanced practice nursing or support of perioperative patients. There's a maximum points allotted of 60. And you need to, if you're audited, provide documentation that you've had contact or contributed to the committee a minimum of 4 times a year. Clinical inquiry includes evidence-based practice and research. You need to have primary responsibility for developing, implementing, and evaluating a project that improves current practice and/or patient outcomes. This is capped at 80 points. And if you are audited, you need to provide documentation summarizing participation in the study. An instructor in an academic program, the course must be at the graduate or postgraduate level and contain a perioperative component. Your students may be advanced practice nurses. They do not have to be clinical nurse specs. They could be nurse midwives or nurse practitioners or CRNAs. They could be residents, interns, or physicians, physician assistants, or graduate or doctoral students. The maximum points allotted is 90, and this is calculated based on the credit load for the course. So if you're teaching a 3-credit course, that converts to 15 contact hours, which is 30 points there. I did it. The math was catching me up there. And if audited, you need to provide basically what you taught as the instructor: course description, syllabus, number of credits, and methods of evaluation. Precepting. The student must be in an accredited APRN program. You cannot use precepting for new hires, undergrads, or partial clinical experiences. So we're looking for at least 1 semester, quarter, or a clinical rotation. So partial, if they're there for the day, it doesn't count. So we've really well defined what precepting looks like. Maximum points is 60, and if audited, provide a letter from the sponsoring institute outlining your precepting responsibilities and the date. So this usually requires a letter from either your supervisor or the clinical faculty from the academic setting to verify your precepting of their student. Presentation must be related to advanced practice perioperative nursing based on one of the 6 subject areas as outlined in our job analysis. If audited, need to be providing something with your name on it that says that you presented. Publishing as clinical nurse specialists, that is something that is almost an expectation that we disseminate findings. So journal articles, patient family teaching, contributing towards a book. If you have gone back for your DNP or PhD, using your dissertation, being a peer reviewer of a journal article or a book, there is a maximum points allotted of 75. And if you're audited, you need to provide either a copy of your article or the abstract or the title page that says, yes, I contributed towards this. You are, another way to gain points is through serving on CCI exam and or portfolio development committees. There is a maximum points allotted of this for 100. And if audited, you will have been given an acceptance letter when you said, I'll do this, and that's what your documentation will be if you're audited. I want to focus on the CNS-CP committees because without you as volunteers, we cannot run this credential. So here's a breakdown of all the points if you are working on a portfolio development committee. If you agree to be a peer reviewer for portfolios, it's 15 points per application. So that's a really nice way to give back to your profession, to stay current, to mentor our rising young CNSs in the perioperative setting. So please, if you are recertifying, look at serving as a peer reviewer. We're always looking for folks to look at the portfolios, and there's an orientation process, and you are supported and mentored as a peer reviewer. So people love doing this. For recertification, chair people, team leaders, committee chairs can earn up to 40 points a year, depending on how often you meet. Committee members can earn up to 30 points a year. For our recertification packets, and we are walking you through this right now, you can see that somebody needs to be looking at these who is a CNS-CP. You can get 10 points per application there. So again, I highly encourage you to serve either as a peer reviewer for a portfolio or for the recert applications. Points allotted, 15 per application for portfolio, 10 per application for recert. And again, if you're audited, you must provide your CCI acceptance letter. But again, please consider this as a way to continue supporting the CNS-CP. The last activity that we're going to talk about is your APRN primary certification. Most of my CNS-CPs are adult general. I do have, I believe, one pediatric CNS-CP. So if you maintain that certification, initial certification is worth 45. And renewal is a little bit less, and I didn't put that on the slide. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, maintaining your primary certification earns you credit. Please understand that this CNS-CP credential is not in place of your primary certification. So if your state requires you to have a primary certification in order to practice and be licensed as a CNS-CP, that's what that is the first priority, is maintaining that certification. Okay, let's look at peer reviewers. this is, so we've gone through the self-assessment, we've gone through the learning plan, we've looked at, and there are other activities besides what I showed just now, but there's another component of your learning plan, and that is a peer reviewer. Some of you are the only CNS, certainly in your perioperative department, you may be the only CNS in your healthcare system. So it's really hard to get feedback on how well you're doing. So the peer review system is set up to enable you to get feedback on how you're doing and earn points. It's a required component of recertification. You need to have 2 peer reviewers. Each peer review is worth 5 points. And it's just another method to validate achievement of continued competence. Sources of feedback. Who can fill out your peer review form? Does not have to be a CNS, does not have to be an advanced practice nurse. I mean, it would be great if they were, because those are your true peers, but again, it may be a surgeon, it may be another physician, it may be a nurse practitioner, it may be your manager. It needs to be somebody who is knowledgeable about your role as a perioperative CNS and familiar with the work you have accomplished. So they need to be, if you're doing a presentation and they attend and they're evaluating your expertise as a presenter, that's a really good example of a peer review opportunity. The feedback form is a fillable PDF. You would give that to your to the person that you have chosen, and it is individualized. So there are peer review forms based on the activity that you are doing, whether you're presenting, did an organizational systems change type of activity, whether you consulted on something, a leadership position, working on a committee, if you learned a new skill, there's a feedback form specific to that. So I'm really excited about that change. You should be able to get great information, which again validates what you did well, provides you possibly with an opportunity for additional learning or skills acquisition. Okay, let's look at the reflective form, which is the last part of recertification. I know you probably think this is going on forever, but this all fits in together. The reflection, there are schools of thought that think that you can't learn unless you reflect. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but it is an integral part of working as an advanced practitioner. It provides us with an opportunity to deliberately, systematically, and critically analyze our practice. It helps us to develop self-awareness, professional knowledge, and personal expertise. What does this look like? What we're doing is analyzing our experiences, their impact on practice, while identifying future learning needs. So you can see that when we talk about lifelong learning, we're never done. We never do a final evaluation and then we don't have to worry about that anymore. We look at what we're doing right now and identify what we would like to be doing differently in our next research cycle. So the reflective activity, you are choosing one meaningful incident related to your learning. Just one. And this is a narrative. What was your role? Describe the event in enough detail that someone who is not familiar with what was going on is able to understand. Talk about what went well. What didn't go as planned? What new knowledge was gained from this experience? And what are some additional areas for improvement? And let me just give you an example. We just recently taught a prep for cert class, and I was one of the lead instructors. This is a course that we teach all the time. We tried a couple things that were new. We tried breakout rooms that people loved. They loved the breakout rooms. They loved being divided up into smaller groups to work on things. and they loved the practice questions that we had. So those were two things that went really well. Something that didn't go well is that we didn't realize that the platform that we were using did not support the number of people who had registered for the class. So there was some big scrambling the first hour to get everybody basically re-registered. So that was something that we had not planned on. A little bit of a rocky start. Moving forward, you can bet that we will know how many people can sign up for a course. So that was just a lesson learned. So that's just an example of reflecting on what happened and what we'll do differently next time. So final steps. Complete all the forms. So you're going to have an application form. You're going to have your self-assessment, your learning plan, your learner log that has your activities and your contact hours, your 2 peer review forms, and your reflection. You're going to send in your payment, $300 if you hold a CNOR, $350 if you don't. Submit it. Now we have a new address, so please take note of that. You can either mail it to us or you can email that application to the CNS-CP at cnc-institute.org. This is a manual process right now. I'm hoping that next time you recertify, this will be something that you can complete entirely online. But for right now, you're going to be downloading forms, filling them out, and then sending them back to us. Please send them all together in one packet. It makes it a lot easier for the folks who are reviewing them when everything is received at one time. Let's look at some other options. If you are not able to meet eligibility requirements, you are not working right now, or you're not working as a CNS right now, or you're not working in a perioperative setting right now, what you will need to do is allow your credential to lapse and then certify using the portfolio. The portfolio cannot be used for recertification. And there's no longer an exam available. So that is, if you can't recertify using the method that we just went over, then you'll have to let your credential lapse and then complete a portfolio. And there's information on our website about the portfolio, which is also a pretty wonderful, innovative way to demonstrate competence as a CNS in the perioperative setting. If you are planning to retire, consider emeritus status. It's a one-time fee of $125. You don't maintain this credential. You pay the fee once, and then you're able to put CNS-CP with an E in parentheses behind it forever and ever and ever. Retiring your credential benefits you in a couple ways. Number one, it allows you to continue to take credit for holding this credential. It also lets you volunteer for any of our CCI, test development, and CNS-CP committees. So please, if you're thinking, you know what, I'm not going to be doing this job when it's time to recertify, please think about going emeritus, because then you could serve as a peer reviewer for either portfolios or the recert applications. And the application is on the website. You don't have to do this right now, but you do have to do it before your credential lapses. Your credential must be active to go emeritus. Okay, we are going to answer questions now. Please know, though, that you as a CNS-CP are vital for the survival and success of this program. So it's just like a teenager. It doesn't run on its own. It needs constant care and feeding and revisiting to make sure that we are capturing the essence of the CNS-CP practicing in the perioperative setting. So I'm going to go ahead and open up for questions again. Type them either in the chat, or let's see if we've got any questions in the question section. I don't see anything yet. but I'll stay on for a little bit and answer questions. And we did record this, so you can come back and listen to it either on our website or on YouTube. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, but please, and thank you for the constructive feedback. I appreciate that. There's our toll-free number, or you can contact our credentialing specialists at info@cc-institute.org, and they will connect you with a person who can answer your questions about CNS-CP recertification. It has been my pleasure to spend this time with you tonight. I hope everyone has a pleasant evening. Stay well, be safe. Thanks again, and good night.